Welcome to Highly Sensitive, Happily Married, the podcast that teaches you to not only have an easier marriage as a sensitive woman, but to have one that feels more amazing by the day. Where you'll hear relatable stories, love advice that works, and coaching on how to have a marriage where feeling upset and disconnected is a thing of the past, and where instead a sense of loving connection and even fun and lightness is the norm. I'm Hannah Brooks, highly sensitive person, love expert, and marriage coach, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. Hello there, my wonderful sensitive friend, and welcome to episode 113. And thank you so much for tuning in today. Before we dive in, I wanted to let you know how much fun I'm having and how thrilled I am, how excited I am for some things that are heading your way. So many good things to help really change things for this so much better in your marriage. And if you want to be one of the first to know about these exciting opportunities and to get in on them or to decide whether you want to get in on them or not, you've got to hop on my email list. When you're on my email list, you get the first heads up about all of this stuff. So I'm putting the link in the show notes for the direct link to hop on my email list. Otherwise, you can go directly to www.lifeisworthloving.com/email and hop on it that way. But for today, we are going to talk about marriage perfectionism. This is something you might tend towards if you're a perfectionist in general. Like last episode, we dove way into that, so episode 112. But marriage perfectionism is also something that happens way more often, like with those of you who don't actually see yourself as a perfectionist because of societal conditioning. Again, dang, that stuff, right? I mean, that's societal conditioning. It shapes us. And in this case, in ways that really can super negatively impact our marriages. So we're gonna talk about this today. Let's start by remembering that you only need to be able to do 3 things really well to have a great marriage, to have an amazing marriage. And I made a whole episode about this, which is episode 105, the 3 simple things you need to do to have an amazing marriage. And here they are, just as a reminder. You need to be able to love and believe in the being that you are, the highly sensitive being. You need to know how to move through and out of negative emotions that hurt love if you're stuck in them. And you need to know how to move into emotions that foster love and connection that keeps increasing over time. So, simple, right? But the problem is, for all humans, and for highly sensitive people, none of these are as easy as they sound. With our sensitive brains, especially, we can have trouble doing all of these things. Meaning we tend to feel and get stuck in negative emotion a lot. Both kind of negative emotion about ourselves, about our partner, and sort of even our marriage as an entity, right? And this is especially so if you tend towards perfectionism, as many of us do as highly sensitive people, like I talked about last time. There really are lots of overlaps between perfectionism and high sensitivity. And all of this is partially because of how our brains are wired. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you'll know this. And some of these ways that our sensitive brains and or perfectionist brains tend to be kind of wired is in fault finding. They can be critical. They can see the negative, what's wrong and what's missing. We tend to really want good things, but our sort of instinctual wiring, our brain and our nervous system wiring tends to try to get the good things by focusing on what's bad and wrong, right? It's like a little bit of a backwards mechanism for getting good things in our life. And yeah, so it just has this tendency our brains just have this tendency to focus in that direction on default, when left on default. So again, seeing what's wrong and missing, both in yourself and in your significant other. our significant others. Because remember, what we do to ourselves, we do to others. The way we are oriented in our brain, we are oriented towards others. In other words, the way our brain operates is the way it operates. Wherever we go, we bring it with us, right? So if we're intolerant of our own flaws, our mistakes, our imperfections, we are very likely to be intolerant and frustrated when others make mistakes or have flaws that we see. If, for example, we judge ourselves harshly, which we tend to do if we're perfectionists or if we tend towards perfectionism, we will also judge others harshly. If we tend to compare ourselves to others, we will tend to compare, for example, our partner to others, or do the same thing with your whole marriage. I've had lots of clients who have told me about how they have these comparisons between their marriage, their partner, and other people's marriage and other people's partners, and how, the grass must be greener over there, right? And then feel bad about their own partner and their own marriage. So, tending towards perfectionism or having some conditioning by a culture that kind of is perfectionistic in itself sometimes, in many ways, can land us in a sort of problematic place of being somewhat marriage perfectionistic. And I'm going to, just so you know, to not be super precise, I'm going to use the word marriage perfection kind of interchangeably with partner perfection or perfectionism, because I think they're so similar. So when I say marriage perfectionism, I'm also kind of meaning partner perfectionism. And it really can lead to, just to sort of reiterate some things that I brought up last time in the last episode, which I want you to consider this kind of part 2 of the perfectionism series. Marriage perfectionism can really lead to blame and criticism of your partner, whether that's you're showing that a lot in the way you speak with him, or you just kind of feeling it in yourself, right? Again, seeing a lot of his flaws. And then because of this, it can oftentimes lead to him, your partner, feeling like he can't do things right, feeling like he needs to walk on eggshells around you, can bring up a lot of shame for him. And certainly for you, it can lead to you not appreciating or admiring or loving the person you married, right? And kind of always looking for him to be an unrealistic ideal of a human being, and ultimately not learning to work with who he is and have that sense of respect and supportiveness and connection that I know you want. When we have this marriage perfectionism kind of going on, it can really lead to a lot of those backfiring tactics I've talked about, like complaint, demand, control, blame, criticism, that really don't foster the love, the closeness, the intimacy, the sense of teammanship that we want. In other words, marriage perfectionism leads to closing yourself out of your own heart. And also not receiving the love your partner is actually giving. Because we can't receive love well when we don't innately feel we deserve it. And that is a hallmark of perfectionism, right? Again, if you listen to last week's episode, this will make more sense. So do go back and listen to that episode if you haven't yet. So marriage perfectionism really zaps the relationship of lightness, of joy, of playfulness, of flirtiness, of what I call real enchantment, which is being deeply happy and in love with the very real human your partner is, flaws and all. Which leads me to the biggest problem of marriage perfectionism. It's what I call an intolerance to humanness. It bars you from loving humanness, which is actually all we will ever have available to love in another person. Every human comes with humanness, meaning no one will ever not have flaws. No one will never not come with hard stuff, because that's part and parcel of humanness. So if we're disappointed by that, if we're frustrated by that, the specific shortcomings and flaws that we're seeing in our partner, if we're trying to get them to be different, if we're trying to change them, if we're just wishing he was different and imagining what he could be, like this ideal, perfect lover, like amazingly attentive, all the things you imagine in an ideal partner, you can't love the real person in front of you, right? All you can love is an idea that will never exist. And I want to take a minute to say that's really okay if that's going on for you. It's happened. It's definitely gone on for me. It's very natural in humans. It's very normal. But I think that most of us, I think that you, when given the choice, will want to love a real human being, not just some imaginary, idealistic one that can't exist, not an unattainable ideal. Right? You want to love a real human being who exists in the world with you, who knows what it's like to be a human, that experiences hard things, that it has difficult places inside of us. So marriage perfectionism and this idea that you can actually reach, you can actually have a partner that is that unattainable ideal is toxic, in my opinion. And it's unfortunately pretty common and perpetuated by our societal messages that we hear all the time, which is basically this idea that there is a right person out there, the one, right? Soulmate. And although you may not really believe that there is a one right person out there, I do hear it really common. Like, it's very common in my clients to say something along the lines of, I just don't know if he's the right person for me. Or maybe I married the wrong guy, as if there was a Mr. Right. So notice that in yourself. Maybe not all of you believes that there should be an ideal person for you, but I bet there's a little bit, especially if you tend towards perfectionism and you ever feel unhappy or you really are unhappy in your relationship, that believes that there is some Mr. Right, or that maybe you just haven't found the right person. But listen, again, every partner comes with a set of problems. And those problems, quote unquote, vary. My first marriage problems that I thought of as my partner's problems are very different than the things I might identify as my partner's problems now. But nonetheless, a set of problems or challenges or difficulties, we could call it, might be a better way of putting it. They come along with every human being. And the truth is, even if you found a perfectly right partner, quote unquote, you would still have irritations and conflict and hard days, because that's part of being a human. And it would still take conscious effort to truly enjoy that right partner and your marriage in an ongoing way. You would still have to do that work to be happy. You would still have to face the humanness in each of you. That's just not optional. So here's what's fun. I think it's fun. You're going to need to include imperfections, problems, flaws, in your definition of your ideal partner. And don't get confused and think this means that you're settling. If your standard is perfection, you will always have to settle. So perfectionism actually leads to more settling. If you can change that standard to become imperfect but enough, human and lovable, you're not going to feel you're settling, especially when you expand your capacity to truly love humanness. And the good news is this is something you can do. You can learn to drop the unrealistic, overly ideal expectations and really love the human you've married. Remember from the last episode, perfectionism is often about like a compensation or a fear that you're not good enough, right? You're not good enough as is. It's about needing to get something perfect or be more perfect to gain good enoughness, to earn love and worthiness. So needing your partner to be perfect, right? partner perfectionism or marriage perfectionism, needing your relationship to be perfect, is an extension of that. It's not trusting sufficiency. It's not seeing the sufficiency that is there, the good enoughness. It's not sensing it. It's like mistaking the blemish on the face for the whole face. Or I've used this analogy before. It's like looking at your husband when he has like a little bit of a crumb in his mustache or beard and being like, oh, he looks like a pig or something, instead of recognizing all the beauty in his face, right? The way his eyes are crinkling when he smiles and the warmth behind them. What I'm trying to get at here is that this is an internal problem, not a husband problem, which is good news because then it means it can be addressed from within you. And it must be to be happy in your relationship, because every marriage is going to have its blemishes, its imperfections, and they don't need to obscure the beauty that's there, the deliciousness that's available. In fact, these imperfections can actually be the very things that allow you to grow your capacity to love unrestrictedly, to widen and strengthen your big heart's reach. So you have a way less limited, way richer, fuller, deeper experience of love. And what this will take is some excavation of what's blocking you, some unlearning of the messages you internalized about what makes a good partner, right? Like who they must be to be a good partner and for you to love them fully. And I know you can do this because I have helped so many other sensitive women do this, and I have done it myself. And I love my husband so much, and he me. Now, of course, you want to be with someone you can have real feelings for. So I'm not saying that any old person will do for you. But you've already decided that that was the case with this person. Most likely, if you're listening. You wouldn't have gotten married to them or gotten into this long-term committed relationship with him. So you know that you can have those early phase, loving, kind of like honeymoon phase feelings. I call this infatuation, this phase. But it feels amazing, right? You know that you can have all sorts of delicious, wonderful, loving feelings towards him. You can have great, wonderful times together. At least I think most of you listening will have at least gone through that experience with the partner you're with. And if right now you're in a more sort of disenchanted place where things feel less good, they feel more dull or boring, or there's lots of struggle in certain areas, or if you're just dissatisfied with him, it's in part because you have some standards that are too high for humanness, that are superhuman or like godly standards. So again, if you want to love with more of a sense of enchantment again, like those earlier days, the solution is not your partner being more perfect, more superhuman. It's you loving more perfectly. It's about growing your capacity to love sacredly and unrestrictedly. It's about growing your capacity to open your own heart. And what's fun is his imperfections are actually fuel and fodder for you to do this. He's here to help teach you to love what's not always easy to love. He's here to teach you to be the lover you want your ideal person to be. He's here to give you the opportunity to learn how to source your own most essential emotional needs. He's here to teach you how to be with your hard emotions. He's here to teach you how to communicate with integrity and from your heart. He's here to help you give up controlling what you'll never be able to control, another human adult, and learn how to control what you can, your own inner world. He is here to help you find what fulfills you, what brings you joy, what you love, and what you want. He's here to invite you into learning how to always know how to find your own way to love and joy and not rely on him being different than he is for you to get there. He's here to challenge you to find your way back into your own heart in the face of difficulties and conflict and irritations. He's here to laugh with, to look at, and to hone your eye for beauty that's innate in him. We can go back to that good old metaphor of muscles and how we build muscles, how we get strong, right? If I had never walked up a hill in my entire life or run, my muscles would be a lot weaker. I would be a lot weaker as a human and have a lot less capacity to do certain things. In other words, if we were never challenged, if our muscles are never challenged, they never grow. If we are never challenged in love, if our partner's just so perfect that he's just so easy to love all the time, then we never need to grow our capacity. We never need to strengthen our capacity to love. So your partner's imperfections, his difficult places, the ways things that you don't really like about him, they actually give you the gift of allowing you to love more perfectly. And that's something you get to take with you wherever you go. And what's better? What better feeling is there than loving? Love is such a nourishing, healing, expansive, joyful feeling. And please don't get this confused with a lack of love, which sometimes we confuse, or the loss of love. I'm talking about love itself. So if our partner, if we rise to the occasion, is the one who allows us or inspires us or opens the door to being able to more perfectly love, to grow our love and our capacity to experience love, then how more than good enough is that? How perfect is that? How amazing is that our partner with his imperfections allows that for us? So here is what I encourage for a thriving marriage. For a marriage that you love. If you tend towards any bit of perfectionism, instead of channeling it towards having the perfect relationship or trying to perfect your partner or get him to be more perfect, channel it into loving more perfectly, more fully, more widely, more sacredly. Those same things we talked about in the last episode about perfectionism in yourself really apply here. Develop more acceptance, compassion, and seeing the goodness and amazingness in the very flawed, very messy, very human being your partner is. And today we're not talking about how. I have lots of episodes on how. And when you work with me, this is what we focus on. We dive deep into how. We grow that love muscle. Stay tuned for the ways you can work with me. Coming soon. The other thing I encourage you to embrace is that the best kind of marriage is an imperfect marriage. Because again, it allows you to evolve as a human like nothing else. Again, it opens the door to growing your capacity to accept and love and connect to your own self and another human being more powerfully than anything else, if you allow it to, if you take the opportunity. If you're willing to let the difficulties and imperfections in your relationship, in your partner, point you to all that keeps you from being able to accept and love and connect. If you let the imperfections point you to all the barriers within yourself to full-heartedly loving humanness, the extent of your willingness to see those barriers and to address them is the extent to which you'll experience the most amazing love in your relationship. And the majority of those barriers are cultural conditioning that has landed in you and like that sort of basic human instinctual primal wiring of our brains and nervous systems, which keep us from being able to do those three things I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, which is love and believe in ourselves as HSPs, as beings. Know how to move through and out of negative emotion that blocks us, that keeps us from love when we're stuck in it. And knowing how to move into those emotions that foster love and connection that grows and grows. Luckily, in my work, I help you overcome these barriers, unwind them, and learn how to do these 3 things. So you can deeply love the real human who you've chosen as your partner in life. So I hope this has sparked some things in you. That was my big intention for today. Just get you thinking, get some things moving and shifting inside of you. And if you know you want to be happier, more fulfilled, and feel way more love and connection in your marriage, make sure you are on my email list so you can take advantage of the amazing opportunities that I am bringing your way soon. Again, the direct link for that is www.lifeisworthloving.com/email. And be oh so well, my friends.